record button. There we go.
All right, welcome to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the bead and pour white lightning straight onto your brain. What are we talking about today, Samo?
Potpourri today. I have some. You've gotten my late night texting about being frustrated with school, and it's not in the way that I'm doing bad in the whiny kid TikTok
Mhm.
way. It's in the nature of the whole industry. You wanted to talk about documentaries, I think, and I just made the best shredded beef that I have ever made. It is as close to barbacoa as you can get without actually using the cheek meat. This is amazing. So,
Viejas ropas?
was that,
Viejas ropas?
oh, it's so good. It's so tender and just the right amount of fat that it's, if I have to silence myself to eat some more, I was hoping to be done, but oof, it's good. I
Yeah,
have no, the problem is everybody's like, oh, what's the recipe when I make something good? And for those that have followed the show for a while, I'm not the kind of person to follow a recipe. So I
yeah.
actually never know what I did.
I wish
Uh,
I could at least remember how the time that I cook stuff, because that's a big one to me.
well,
Is
this was
oh,
Instant Pot, so it was one
yeah.
cycle on the longest cycle for meat. So so to get it nice and
No, but I do a lot of that too, but I keep tinkering with the time, and then I'll go, "Ooh, that was perfect." And then the next time I'll go, "Crap, what time did I set it for last time?" Because last time it was great.
well, it was about 5 pounds of meat. This is what I know, about 5 pounds of meat, chuck roast that I had to use out of the freezer because it was getting to the edge of where it would start getting freezer burn. So I was like, okay, Instant Pot is the only way to cook it and it tastes good. At this point, uh, a pound of onion, not a pound, a whole onion, uh, 6 cloves of garlic, 7 cloves of garlic, and from then it was just like a red wine. I know I because we had a little bit of red wine in a thing that was going to be not good because it had been opened about a month ago, and salt, pepper, a little bit of Tony's, but the bold, the one that's got a little spice to it, and I think that's all I did.
Just
It,
the red wine, I think, is one of the big keys because there's stuff in there that helps break things down. And I know my wife doesn't like alcohol taste. She doesn't like when you cook with alcohol. My mom really hates it, but you're the witch, the warlock here. So there's witchcraft reasons to use alcohol. It's not for the flavor. It's there are certain compounds that are water soluble and certain compounds that are fat soluble, and there are certain
and
compounds that
alcohol
are
is both.
alcohol soluble. And
Alcohol is
so
both. That's why you got to be careful with your
yeah,
blood brain barrier in your brain. And that's why it hits you so hard because it can be absorbed in all the systems that absorb
mhm,
water soluble things and fat soluble things. And if you feel like puking, and I always tell you this, if you
yes,
feel like puking, do it because that means
yeah.
the little sensor in your blood brain barrier is saying, Mayday, 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 help me out. And
So if you don't like the flavor, have a bottle of mediocre vodka in your kitchen and just pour a shot of vodka in because it's pretty much flavorless. And
if
then
it's
you'll
good,
get
yeah.
that. Yeah, then you'll get that you'll get that witchcraft going on in there, especially tomato sauce. Because the
Oh yeah,
tomatoes are really
we
complicated.
use vodka sauce for
Yeah.
our pasta almost all the time.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
need that. Well, we've gotten off to a good start on the potpourri.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. This was a happier discussion than the things we've been talking about. No, I
This
don't.
actually this
I
actually segues. I have a segue here actually into one of the things I want to rant about.
okay.
Um,
I want to get really deep on one of the things I sent you
okay,
about me regretting my interactions with a certain person. Uh, so you tell me when that fits into your
okay.
conversation.
Well, so I want to rant about I wanted to get into just for funsies to yell at each other about creation and creationism because we've been watching this show on Netflix, Life on Our Planet. Um, but I have even before we can get to that point, um, I feel like we have to have a deeper conversation about how idiocracy was prophetic because we're all getting very stupid. And I think a significant part of that is something we've talked a lot about here, which is um, rejecting tradition, rejecting the past. I don't need to know the witchcraft to know that I need to pour some alcohol in my tomato sauce to make it better. Okay, because other people have done that for me.
Well, let me. It's a detachment. It's not a rejection. So let me
Mm,
explain that. So this is relevant to the modern era because we have stupid college kids saying Palestine is justified in killing Israelis, and you know, I I want a situation where nobody's dying, but that's an idiotic statement. Okay,
Hmm.
the oh, the Palestinians are justified in killing all these people at this rave, right? That's the other extreme of idiotic. You know, everybody can be live peacefully, kumbaya. That's stupid. But on the other end, yeah, but it's detachment is what it is.
Mm.
The only reason they can say that is because they live here.
Mm.
They live here and they will never know that pain. And the same thing with, oh, Israel can do whatever they want because
Yeah.
they're justified in doing so. It's the same argument because you will never know that pain. It's the detachment from living in a, you know, it's the college professor that is talking about critical race theory and saying that this is going to fix everything because I don't live there.
Hmm.
And in fact, if I lived there, I wouldn't survive a week. You know, it's the you know, starving kids in Africa. Well, let's just sign a pledge because you're not starving. In fact, the poor people here are fat. So it's the detachment from it. It's not just the idiocy. It's the you will never know, so you can have stupid ideas. As the Gadsad says, it's something so stupid an academic has to come up with it, right?
Uh, I'm thinking out loud here, um, because I'm not entirely sure what what all has caused this. I know that detachment. Um, I think it's both. I think you're more right with most people,
Mm-hmm.
but that there are those bad actors. There's the useful idiots when it comes to things like
Yeah.
CRT,
Oh,
but
yeah. I
then
agree
then
with
there
you.
are the
Yeah.
people writing the books and pushing the agenda that are purposely trying to destroy the
But
past so that they
they
can
have
build
no
something
power
new.
without the idiocy.
Yes, yes. But this is I
Hitler had no power without the embargoes and the sanctions on Germany that caused
mhm,
them to, like you talked about in our last social episode, to
yes,
degrade. So it's they're just the people that take advantage of the situation.
exactly. So uh I've been noticing this for a bit, and this was my gripe with life, and we talked a little bit with each other about it. That it started off okay, but mostly because the first episode is like an overview. At first, I was like, "You're bouncing
When you said
around a
my
lot."
problem with life, I thought you meant
Well,
life in general, but not the
well,
show.
that's a big
I was about to
topic.
come in there with some deep philosophy, but now we're back to the show. Okay.
Okay,
No, it started
so
out good, and you can't beat Morgan
mhm,
Freeman's voice. So
exactly.
they did good there. The cinematics were great. And the general premise was okay.
And they so
But
they had a
it's
good
like action movies and knowing physics, right?
they had a
I
good
am very well
outline.
versed in
Yeah.
evolutionary biology, and I was like, oh god, oh
So they had a good outline, but see, I don't know the details, but I know enough. Even if I didn't know enough, I'm intellectually curious enough to say, okay, but why? How do you know that? Where does this come from? There are huge gaps in the evolutionary story later on, especially, but even at the beginning, because they're not giving you details.
yeah.
They're
And that
just
was the thing.
telling a narrative.
It's the two mistakes evolutionists in the argument always make. They always focus on the major events, which in this show was the extinction events. They really focused on the
Mm-hmm.
extinction events. And they overemphasize mutation over sexual selection. That's the thing. When you account for sexual selection, you fill in the gaps that people who don't believe in evolution argue about. Because it's like, yeah, we have a preference for this, and slowly over time, this happens.
I will say to Steelman, because you always do it. So let me step over away from the creationist side and Steelman. I will say one of the things that they get that creationists get wrong or gloss over is the enormous amount of time we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Because no, it yes, I I see sense in the argument that the evolutionary process as espoused by evolutionary theorists, to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense. However, when you think about how big a million is, and we've become inured to that because we've allowed our government, in large part because I think because we've allowed our government to become so bloated that 100 million doesn't mean much anymore.
Mm-mm.
I mean, because we're
No,
running
we're
deficits in the
talking in trillions.
trillions.
Yeah,
Yes,
trillions.
we are more in debt than the universe is old. Okay,
Hmm.
let that sink in. So this is an enormous amount of time, and there are various ways to visualize this. I think one of the ones I heard a long time ago was
What's the current debt? 33 trillion?
it's a lot. Like
How many zeros is that?
if you
One,
stacked a
two, three,
million dollars
one,
in
two,
$1
three,
bills, I think you would reach the moon or something ludicrous like that.
100,000
So the amount of time here, and I thought they did a decent job
billions.
with that at the beginning, is kind of showing you, giving you a sense of just how much time is passing here between these narratives.
Okay, so my calculator won't even let me go into the trillions without using E.
Of course.
Okay,
Uh,
so 330 billion divided by how many billion years we've been on? Yeah, we're talking hundreds of thousands with an E over the top
mhm.
longer than the universe has been alive with the debt versus
So
the
have you gotten to the end of the series yet?
oh yeah, I
Did you
finished
have
it. I
time to
finished
finish
it.
it? Okay.
Yeah.
So
Which they did a
and
like 10-minute
oh
annoying
geez.
thing at the end, and it was like, yeah, yeah, you didn't have to go
Yeah,
there.
yeah. But
We're
well,
destroying the world. I'm like,
I
Morgan Freeman, I've heard you talk in interviews and you don't
mhm,
believe
mhm.
this.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
Um, well, in part because he's one of these people, besides the bigness of the world, he is a man of some degree of faith, and so he's one of these people who has the and I think there's an absolutely a rationale to this of humans living their natural lives can't destroy what God created if God created us to live our natural lives and take dominion over the world. But I digress. But I saw that coming, and I'll get to that in a second. I was more annoyed about the beginning of that last episode, which is human life. So they
Yeah, the
start
jump from baboons to humans.
exactly. They
But then they
start
start
with
with evolved
this.
human.
They well, so as I remember, the episode starts with this kind of narrative showing a modern baboon troop and using that as kind of the device to explain where hominids came from. But if I remember correctly, that was, 2.5, 3 million years ago that our first hominid fossils are. And
And
then they
it's
jumped to
yeah,
like
it's
16,000 years ago
it's
into the
very
Ice Age.
fuzzy, and you gotta it depends on who you listen to. Someone like Richard Wrangham, who's really focused on the social aspect of hominids and humans as they go, somewhere around 2 million years ago is, yes, when we came down from the trees per se, but the big event there is actually fire. We discovered how to make fire, and we'll get into the religious part of that here in a minute, because this is the one thing that the Greeks kind of got right, and I think the Christians kind of gloss over. But the discovery of fire was huge. And what they did in the show was they talked about baboons being on the ground and everything. Well, you're absent this one thing that actually makes all of that possible. Why we can't just hop into a tree like they did when a leopard comes around, right? So it's somewhere around 2 million years ago that the discovery of actually actively making fire was done.
Well, and I thought
and
that's
and
where they
that's
were
kind of
going
like a
to
point where
go.
people like start. Yeah.
I thought that's where they were going to go if you're using, these modern baboons and showing, and it seemed like they were setting up, okay, as hominids became more erect and less baboon like, you could no longer just run to the trees to get away from danger. You had to have another way to get away from or fend off the danger. But they don't go there. They just skip to the
they
ice
skip
age.
they skip past the ice age with humans
Well,
to
yes.
basically hunting groups in the North Americas, and it's like
Yeah.
they also got the timeline wrong there, because we actually know that they were here before, from the was it sloth records and stuff, that
Mm-hmm.
people hunting sloths. It's like, oh, those footprints are actually older than we thought. So humans have been around for a long time, and they just glossed over what developing human was.
So I've noticed this a few months ago when I got onto this kick. So I canceled a bunch of stuff to cut some costs, And then I thought, well, so I've canceled these 5 different things. So I'm going to sign up for Discovery Plus, which I'd been wanting to do because I like the shows that are on there. You know, my daughter really likes, things like Mythbusters and the Shark Week shows. I got into the Shark Week shows and I started binging those. I don't know exactly when it was, but I want to say somewhere around 2016 to 2018, they started getting really dumb. And I don't mean like the obvious dumb, because there's the obvious dumb where it's clearly just kind of schlock sensationalism, where you have the over the top narrator, or where you like bring in there was a year that Don Riggle was the host. And so he did this cheesy thing with Anthony Edwards and one of the Wayans brothers, and it was clearly supposed to be funny and stupid. No, I mean the actual serious documentary started getting dumb. Like they started telling you less and less and less information. You started getting less and less detail, and it was more about the clickbait. It was more about the jumping sharks.
Mm-hmm.
It was more about the the climate change narrative. That was always there, but another example would be the Our Planet. So life on our planet is kind of
Mm-hmm.
part of this thing, and Our Planet, and then they did a second season of it more recently. Netflix produced it, and so in the first series, that last 5-10 minutes was all about climate change and how we're destroying these things that we just spent 50 minutes showing you. Well, now it's right from the beginning, and that narrative just beats you into the ground, and they don't actually give you the information, the informative details about this thing that they're supposedly showing you. So things are just getting dumber and dumber. And at first, I thought, this is how little respect they have for the audience. But then I got to thinking, well, no, I shouldn't give them that much credit. Maybe they're just this stupid too.
Well, and this is I was going to write this down, but I'm just going to say it now because I think it's appropriate here. There were so many self owns on the climate change narrative within that show
Mm-hmm.
that I don't even think they picked up on. Like, okay, so the plankton event where plankton just became just overrun, and they were taking over the world, and that's what caused one of the first great freezes that killed all the plankton. Right now, again, it's over a couple million years, but these extreme weather changes were caused by all kinds of things along the way, whether it was the forests growing up, whether it was the plankton, whether it was the emergence of the first predatory subspecies, the jellyfish, and so what. All of these things cause these. Humans is just another one.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really want to look back, you say, well, you know what? Well, if we're trending things in one direction, well, what was the thing in history that trended it in the other? Because we might be able to balance things out.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we really are warming the planet with all this carbon dioxide, well, there's a lot of people, the planetary movement was the right thing to do. That's real environmentalism. Let's plant a tree, right? Because something that loves carbon dioxide is going to benefit from the thing that we produce, and the whole planet is better. Should we be breeding and producing more plankton to balance out what we do? Right. We do know, because neither of us are alarmists, that it's a slow process, even though it's happening. Well, we probably could counterbalance that by in another way, naturally, not even artificially, because it's just making water plants is all it is.
This stupidity is also bleeding into uh fictional media as well. It's not just the nonfiction. It's not just the documentaries. And that this is where I think it's becoming so pervasive. This dumbing down of, there have been books written about the dumbing down of America. Well, the dumbing down of everybody across the world, especially in the West, because we are detached from tradition, because we are um, pushing narratives instead of teaching, and not just teaching, but celebrating critical thinking. Okay, the idea that I don't care if you're wrong. I don't care if I disagree with you. Can you make a good argument? Can you think a problem through? So I have another example here. Can I share?
I
Here we
think I
go.
set it up. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I don't need to share with sound because we don't need to get copyright struck, and it's not important. One of the best movies of all time.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I still stop to watch this if I come across
Yes,
it. Yeah.
because and it's because McTiernan was a phenomenal director, and so he took a really kind of cheap and cheesy script, but he made it compelling with the way he told the story. Because at first, it is, you know, uh, it's kind of a there's a bit of a suspense movie to it. It starts out as kind of a suspense movie with this team of special forces creeping through the jungle and what's going on here. And then you get to the camp and it turns into a schlocky 80s action movie. But then as more and more as you start to see through the eyes of what's watching them, it turns into a horror movie, then turns into a survival movie. All right. Except some idiot producers ruined McTiernan's vision with this right here. And this opening shot, and you can tell by the special effects that this was added in later and rushed. Okay, look how terrible that thing looks here. Okay, oh my gosh, we have a spaceship, and it's coming to Earth. So immediately you know what the movie's about. In the original script, you didn't know what was going on because that was part of the building. Because at first, you know something's watching them, but it takes a little while before you start to see the infrared and see through the predator's eyes. So just
Yeah,
that
and I don't even
little
think you see
20
the predator
seconds
till he
there.
rips that dude's spine out.
And
I
and
think that's
you
the first
initially
scene you see him.
see him fuzzy.
Yeah.
So it's because he's got the suit on or he's got the camouflage
But you
thing
see him
on.
through Ventura's eyes.
Yes, because you
That's the
see him
I think the
moving
first time you see him, yeah.
and then you see
But
the
other than
eyes
that, you
glow.
see the shots through his vision where
Mhm.
he's changing his. Oh, I need to see through black and white and then infrared, and then he sees the
Yeah,
scorpion. Is that the first vision you see from him when they kill the scorpion?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
which
So
that one they fumbled on because scorpions are not warm blooded. But
I was thinking about this over the weekend because there's a movie that I remember seeing the trailers for and thinking, "Oh, that looks pretty good." And it had Adam Driver in it, who poor guy, he's a phenomenal actor, but almost everything he is kind of is either terrible or not very good. And it was 65. It was the title, and it sometimes the title was 65 million. Um, the trailers kind of ruined the movie, but then for some reason, there's this uh, script at the front that completely ruins the movie, even worse than that shot from Predator, explaining to you that even before humans on Earth evolved, there were humanoids exploring the galaxy. Why did you why did you tell me that? And the script was so awkward. Uh some of the production companies were uh, Eastern European or European or non-US, and you can kind of tell. This is why I think this was added in after the fact because this text is kind of in English.
English.
It doesn't, yeah, it doesn't really work. It's
I'm
it's a little too
so
literal. But
ornery.
so the point of the movie is that Adam Driver is this spaceship pilot that crash lands on this primitive hostile planet where there are these monsters out there. And so the only survivor is this girl that he's got to keep alive to try and get to an escape pod and get off the planet. Well, it completely ruins it when you know going in that this is Earth 65 million years ago. Why did you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't you just have the creepiness? Why didn't you have the build? Why did you didn't even show us the shark? You told us there was a shark. When because the first time you see a dinosaur, you just you almost think you know you saw a T-Rex, but it's from far away and it's through trees and you just kind of see its back. So you're not exactly sure what you saw unless you saw the trailers and then saw that stupid text and realized, "Oh, that's a T-Rex."
Yeah. Yeah.
That So there's a combination there of either you think your audience is so stupid that they won't be engaged unless they know exactly what's going on here, or you're so stupid that you think this needs to be done in order to tell a coherent story. The dumbing down is getting to, I mean, this is kind of an amusing example, but it's getting to the point where it's like idiocracy levels of dangerous.
And this is human nature too. You talked about people being dumber, and I talked about being detached and uh, dysfunction. Right now, we have a huge dysfunction in the dating game because we have dating apps.
Mm.
You fill out, I'm 6 feet tall. I make $75,000 a year. I do this. I do that. When you get out in the real world and you're trying to cook up, you allude
Mm.
to everything. You never tell.
It's a good point.
You just kind of tease things out there and see what the interest is. And that's a good interaction. That creates passion. When you already have selected all that stuff out, there, no wonder these people can't catch feels, right?
There's also, that's actually a great point that segues into one of my points about our collective stupidity and how it's getting worse. You
Well,
you
we're outsourcing
also,
everything. We're
yeah.
outsourcing our brains.
So exactly. So in that interaction, you're exercising your brain and you're building something. You're building an intangible connection there as you're getting to know someone, because you have to think about what to ask, and then you have to think about how to react, and then even if it's happening on a subconscious level, your brain is having to work. So you're building something there rather than just, playing 20 questions with someone, which even that would be better because you would still have to think, speed dating style. You would still have to think. You
Well,
would
and
still
you
be
you even
building a
have you still
rapport.
have the element of someone that's witty in their answers too, and that's it's part of the interplay. If someone says, "Well, what do you do?" I might not say, "Well, I'm a personal trainer." I would say, "Well, just go into something that sounds cool." It's like filling out a job application,
Mhm.
right? It's the sandwich maker is the procurer of sustenance for it's
Right. So there's an element there that's akin to Googling an answer. This is something I ranted at my kids about all the time. And I don't think I even knew how right I was then, which is that having to look up an answer in the old days was a task. It was work, which meant you were exercising your brain. Because even if because even first you had to figure out where to look up the answer, you had to figure out what to look up, okay, to answer this question you had. Now you ask the specific question in a search engine and you get a little box. Yes, you get lots of results, so you could go down a rabbit hole, but mostly you just look at that little box at the very top that says, here's your answer. I'm done. You haven't done anything. You haven't worked your brain. That's why you're going to immediately forget what you just looked up.
it's like multiple choice tests versus essay, right? You actually have to come up with your original thoughts in the essay, where multiple choices, oh yeah, I remember that because I saw that word before attached to this other word.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was proud of Ben this year with his Halloween costume because to tell you, the normies didn't get it, but he was popular at the Ren Fair. He did a blackout suit with a big thing he put on his head that looked like a treasure chest with teeth. What was he?
Is he a mimic?
He was a mimic, yes. And everybody at the Ren Fest was like, "Oh, that's so awesome!" But then he kind of wore it around here in suburbia, and they were like, "What are you, a dragon or something?" And he's like,
Well, I blame it
"No."
on the recent Dungeons and Dragons movie for not being better.
Mm.
It was enjoyable. It was
I
solid.
enjoyed it. I
It
enjoyed it.
it could have been good.
Yeah,
Uh, but I
it was better
digress.
than I thought it was going to be. How about that?
Yes,
Yeah.
it was. So I can't remember if I've said this here or not. Chuck, the affable gentleman who we've had on talking about
Oh, it's
Witcher,
his
which,
birthday today.
oh
Happy
yeah,
birthday, Chuck. I need to send him something. I saw that when I was working and I forgot to follow up.
which I've just reminded myself. Oh hey, yeah, Witcher season 3. That was a thing that we watched and we still haven't talked about because we don't care. Nobody cares. But I had this text exchange with him a while back where I had watched um, someone I've mentioned before, Razor Fist, the Rageaholic channel. He has some really fun, witty movie reviews, and they're mostly like 80s action schlock. And he did Escape from LA. And it made me though his explanation, his exploration of the movie kind of made me appreciate it more. And I was texting this to Chuck that maybe we misjudged this. That I know we went and saw that together, didn't we? I don't remember if Chuck was with us when we saw that. I think we went and saw that together. Um, but I digress. Uh,
We probably ate at that Chinese place on
yeah,
Walsham. Yeah,
yep,
that we
yep.
always went to. Yeah.
Um, and he made the point that no, you're just being nostalgic because, and this was like 8 years ago, maybe. You're just being nostalgic because it was made by a competent filmmaker, Carpenter, who is a very competent creative individual who even if the uh even if the idea wasn't great, the execution was always good. Okay. So now you have people that don't even understand the basic tenets of storytelling of rising action, climax, falling action, denouement, the most basic structure of a story, and they don't even understand it, let alone know how to do it.
Which is funny because it's also the structure of an orgasm, but
um, and I think a great example of this is, did we talk about this when we were recording, or was I just ranting about this to you? The Batman, the one with the dude from Twilight as Bruce Wayne as Batman,
I don't even think you've ranted
and
to me about this.
that movie made me so mad because it was almost better than the Nolan movies as a Batman movie. Nolan is by far the superior filmmaker, but as a Batman movie, you got something that even the good ones, even with Batman Begins, there was a little bit of it in The Dark Knight. There was a little bit of it in the Tim Burton Batman, but Batman Detective Comics, Batman was a detective story. So the best Batman stories are the mysteries that he has to solve. And that's what this was. And it started out great. That it showed you, and it did it without necessarily making anyone else look stupid. Batman was just good. Bruce Wayne was just good at seeing these clues, knowing they were clues, and then figuring out what they meant.
Have you
The
seen Patterson's interviews about his Twilight character?
No, I know he hated it.
Yeah, well, they asked him how he played a self-loathing vampire so well, and he said, "Well, I read the script and I hated my character, so I just played like."
Delightful. But he does a really good Batman. His Bruce Wayne's a little iffy, but he does a really good Batman. The other thing the movie does great that one of the great things about DC is that it's a fantasy. It's not a comic book world, it's a fantasy world. And I think the basic example of this is that Marvel is set in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
DC is set in Gotham and Metropolis,
Metropolis, yeah.
Central
Mm-hmm.
City, Star City. It's part of the fantasy. So the cities themselves are characters. And Burton did a decent job of this with his Gothic style, but I'm brain farting on the filmmaker here. He did an even better job of it. Gotham was a character in the story. The problem was the storyteller didn't know how to properly structure a story. The movie was an hour longer than it needed to be.
Mm.
The movie was basically one and a half movies. So the scene from the trailer that was kind of the iconic action shot, which is the Batmobile jumping through the fire after the penguin, that comes with an hour left still in the movie. That should have been the end, with that next hour being part of a second movie. But for whatever reason, be it uh, uh, lack of just basic intelligence, basic storytelling know-how, be it vanity or ego, and not wanting to tighten up your story, not wanting to get rid of these things that you had written and that you have shot, it ruins it. It goes from a very compelling, tight action mystery to this bloated thing that I kept looking at the watch that's not on my wrist going, how much longer is left in this? I don't remember where I was going with that.
Yeah, I don't know where you were going with that either, because I can't even see how it fits to our evolution of life.
The point is much like with, Predator's intro ruining things, or 65, or this stupidity is not confined to something like a documentary. This is a symptom. This isn't the thing. It is a symptom of an overarching illness in the we are in late stage republic bred in circuses. That is where the Western civilization as a whole is at right now, and it is revealed with how dumb we are.
Can I give two movies to put a bright spot in this that I've seen? I don't watch very many movies, but
Mm.
I've hit the nail on the head a couple times in recent history. Two movies that were actually quite good. The Pope's Exorcist with Russell Crowe was really good. And I just watched one last night. I almost did the Our Planet, the second season of that, and I was like, no, I just want to kind of explore out a little bit. And you're going through Netflix, you think it's going to be a show, but it was actually a movie. So I stayed up too late last night, and so I thought I was starting a show, but it was Reptile. It had Benicio del Toro as a
It's got some
top,
big names in it. Yeah.
Justin Timberlake, Alicia Silverstone, who looks completely different than she used to. And I'm trying to figure out if I think she's hotter now. She's got that MILF look now. And she's obviously gained some weight and stuff, but she was pretty dang hot. I was surprised. But I digress, because we grew up on Aerosmith's Crazy, right? Where he sexualized his daughter. But let's skip that part. But no, that was actually a really good movie. Relatively low budget, but great acting, a good story, and everybody wants to, oh, what a twist. There actually was a twist, and you kind of saw it coming a little bit, but you were still unsure of yourself the whole time. And that's actually the best kind of twist, because if it comes out of
Mm-hmm.
nowhere, it's stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's too predictable, it's also not an interesting movie. But if you're kind of like, oh, this might happen, but then other things keep happening that you're like, oh, you start second guessing yourself, those are the best twists. So it was good. So that's the bright spot. I
Yeah,
wanted to put a
that
bright
is.
spot on the conversation. Yeah. So
Yes, and the difficulty with writing a twist is you have to be a clever person to figure it out in the first place. You have to be a cleverer person to write it so that the audience, like you say, strike that balance between the audience not figuring it out, but not being ugh when it gets there, like with the later stage M. Night Shyamalan movies.
yeah, well, and you always wonder, it's like, who could have wrote this, because you got to think of this to write it. People thought about, with the first Saw movies, it's like
Mm.
someone had to like actually think this
Ugh.
up, and you're
A
like,
little worried
oh
about
yeah,
you.
yeah, a little
Yeah.
worried about that. But then you see it, because look at modern writers, they have their own dysfunction, but that dysfunction is the thing we bitch about all the time,
Mm.
is their own self-righteousness, right? So I would take the dysfunction of somebody who maybe have some morbid thoughts, but found a good outlet for it in film versus actually doing it in real life, than the dysfunction of someone who's just a spoiled baby brat who went through school and got indoctrinated and now has a writing degree, and goes to Hollywood and makes stupid spoiled movies. So
Mm-hmm.
they both have dysfunction. One of them is manifesting it in a positive way, and the other one is just being preachy.
I have a I have a segue there to a totally different ish topic, but I need to
Well, it
pause
is
for a second. Go
potpourri.
go let
Yeah.
the dog in. Give me a
Okay.
second.
All right. We do have potpourri today, so we're going to be bouncing topics. But I do want to say that I knew that, and for some reason I was just in this mood anyway. So you could see the random selection of books about. I knew you would be wanting to talk about the show, so we got Evolution of God up there. Richard Wright, who is a journalist, but he's more well versed in evolutionary psych than anybody in my department. We've got his other book, The Moral Animal, so that's up there. Uh, Malignant by Vinay Prasad, talking about how bad policy has ruined cancer research and killed people. Big Brain Sapolsky with his free will episode there. Post romantic stress, because It's actually it's a stupid name for a real phenomenon. And what do I have next to that? Oh yeah, some Dawkins. I was just in a mood today. And then we got Machiavelli next to Steven Pinker, two completely opposite things. And then feeling a little positive, some Constantine kissing next to Nietzsche. So we're
Oh, that's very positive.
and it
Positively
reminds
something.
yeah. I just watched Douglas Murray on trigonometry again. And it wasn't this interview, but it was one way back where somebody said something about Nietzsche. Oh, you could tell a lot about a person of whether or not they like Nietzsche. And he goes, well, you can tell a lot about a person by what parts of Nietzsche they like.
That's a good point. All right. So, uh, different topic, but there's still it's still along the same theme, and I'll um
Just give me enough time to bitch about school.
okay.
Yeah.
So I'll start it with a good article by Jason Whitlock, who I watch his show, but I really should get back to reading him more because he's a much better writer than he is a show host. He's
Yeah,
a
I don't
very good,
like his pauses.
yeah,
I
he's a
think,
very good journalist.
yeah.
He so this is a piece he wrote a couple weeks ago. The Blaze has completely changed their site, by the way. It's a much better experience now because they've gone completely ad free. Because for those of you who don't know, most ads go through Google. And if Google doesn't like something on your site, they'll tell you you're not ad friendly and
Hmm.
that you have to remove stuff or you'll lose all your ads. So they said, well, screw it. We're just going completely subscription. But there's a ton of stuff for free and it's still ad free. So it's a much better browsing experience. Anyway, the decline of the NFL mirrors the collapse of America. And this is kind of something I've been ranting about this season with the the fact that football just isn't fun anymore. Why? Well, the NFL has the same problem as the rest of the America. I love the way he phrases this. The main thing is no longer the main thing. Simple and true. For nearly 200 years, the pursuit of freedom was the main thing for America. We bickered, fought, protested, boycotted, and killed in our quest to provide all citizens with freedom. 60 years ago, we pivoted to equality, a standard man and government cannot guarantee, a goal that paves the road to the kind of chaos and division that rule modern America. Only God can deliver equality. Man can create rules that provide individuals with the freedom to pursue it. Frustration over man's inability to create equality has inevitably led the opponents of God to seize power under the pretense that they can control and ration equality. They launch affirmative action and diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives that limit freedom, attack merit, and divvy the spoils produced by the Americans who took advantage of and protected this nation's unprecedented freedoms. America's collapse is a direct result of failing to keep the main thing.
I have a little problem with his language there because pursuit of equality is actually part of a pursuit of freedom. He's talking about equity, the result. He's talking when he said equality, then he talked about the results as something that can't be guaranteed, but you can guarantee the freedom to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that so he did it's nitpicking at his language, but
Yes.
I think that's actually
I,
a very important nitpick.
I would have liked it better if he would have used the word equity there.
Yeah.
Um, what we pivoted to there is a bit of a blurring of the line there because what the uh what the good intention was to provide equality under the law, but it very quickly morphed into providing equality of outcome,
The
equity.
problem is we succeeded.
Well, yes,
That's the problem.
that's the
There had
cancer
to be
research back there
yeah, there had
is
to be a new fight, right?
yeah, one of the does he go, I don't know if he goes into this in that book because I haven't read it, but does he go into the fact that one of the problems with cancer research is, you're not supposed to say this, but groups like Coleman that because they are a self-perpetuating NGO that therefore actual cancer research is secondary to raising money.
Yeah, well, it's more along the lines of all medicine right now, where they benefit from the profits of treating versus preventing. And
Mm.
so that causes a kind of a self-perpetuating system of, we can create this medicine that alleviates your symptoms, we can create this medicine that will that can cure you, but it's not necessarily for your own health. It's the fact that we need the problem to exist for us to be profitable, and that's part of it. So but also there's a lot of like insider baseball kind of stuff, where this company is calling the shot. So if another company is actually making a breakthrough, they sabotage the results there. So it's quite complex, and this is why I listened to him a lot on COVID, and I
Hmm.
have my opinions about what he wouldn't and would talk about. But I will steel man him on this, that he picked some hills to die on, and he just figured if he would pick those other hills, he would lose the ones he took, and so it was a strategic move. The cynical side would say, well, he knew which ones would be profitable, you know. So whichever the motive is, I don't care. He still did good
Hmm.
work. But yeah, it's medicine is not my most respected industry right now.
Yeah. Well, anything that becomes big and bureaucratic is,
Mm-hmm.
as Whitlock puts it, the main thing isn't going to be the main thing.
Well,
Football got too big for its own good when it became a multi-billion-dollar industry.
let me give a more localized example. I had a group of clients that all worked for the same company. It was a home health PT type company, uh, and none of them work there anymore because they kept hiring admin to do HR things, and then that kept growing and growing and growing. But yet the people on the bottom were the ones that had to make the money, because they were the ones that treated the patients, which is where the money came from. And as it was really obvious from the way they were bitching and moaning about everything over the course of about 10 years of me working with them, I was like, this is basically admin justifying their
Hmm.
place in the company. And at the point where it was, the tipping point was, admin was as big as the people who produce the work, which is what we're seeing in schools, where admin is bigger than the faculty, right? That's the tipping point when everything starts going downhill. Now the NFL is kind of, I mean, it was players, coaches, owners for a while. Now it's players, coaches, owners, and this massive marketing unit that they have to justify, and it keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. And they're also stupid because they're people who didn't have the chops to go into STEM.
So I don't even remember how I got here, but I have a bunch of tabs up using Trump as an example, and
Well,
hopefully it'll all make
again,
sense
let
here.
me make the positive voice here again. If anybody watched, this is not just because I'm a Texans fan. This was an amazing football game.
Hmm.
Texans Buccaneers this
Hmm.
last weekend. Baker Mayfield finally getting a second chance and making something out of it, and our young guy Stroud going back and forth and making plays, not
Yeah,
yellow flagging their way down the field, actually
yeah.
making plays. I mean, you want to say, oh, I love to watch defense. The defense was doing well. These guys were just hitting it just right.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's what you want to see. If you want a high scoring game, the defense is doing everything right and somebody still makes plays.
You just triggered something. It reminded me of one of the reasons that I go nuts and get so annoyed watching football these days is when the announcers get all excited about he's still on his feet. Of course he's still on his feet. No one tackles anymore. They just bounce around like they're in a pinball machine.
Yeah, but we're talking like stripping the ball and everything, and
Yes.
then someone else making a big play to keep it going. And this was probably one of the best football games I've ever watched.
I Is maybe the best one of the this season for
It's definitely
sure.
the best one of this season.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if I've seen anything else that I can't think of one. Uh,
Maybe remember the Titans Rams Super Bowl, the 1 foot
yeah, yeah.
from the end. That was a really good one too. That was what, 98, 99. It was our last year of high
That
school,
was,
so 98. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Because I remember I watched it at the Bones house.
Yep,
Caleb.
yep,
Yep.
yep,
Yep.
yep. All right. So back to the thing is not the thing. What? How does that? Uh, how does that
Well,
practically apply itself?
you
Okay. There's
you
a
have the best example this year is Taylor Swift and fucking Kelsey.
he mentions that in the
Yeah.
I didn't I stopped before we got to that part, but he makes the point that this goes way beyond just pandering to Taylor Swift fans.
It's
As he
it's why I
points
can't
out, this
stand
is
Collinsworth as an announcer.
yes.
He's got his talking points, and it doesn't matter what's going on in the game.
Mm-hmm.
He is going to talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
Gruden was the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'm trying to think of other announcers, but those were the two worst. That's why
Yeah.
I like Troy Aikman because he actually talks about the game.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm I like what's his face. I'm brain farting on his name. The guy who's on Thursday night now with Al Michaels, who's the best
Oh yeah, yeah. He used to be
living
college.
play-by-play guy left. He has good insights, and a lot of it is
Yeah,
because he talks about the college connections here.
yeah. Starts with an
But
H.
he's
Herb
actually
Street, Kirk Herb
Herb
Street.
Street.
Yeah,
I kept wanting to say Hodges, and I knew that was wrong. Just like no, Merrill Hodges is persona non grata now amongst the powers that be because he's has a heterodox opinion on CTE. But I digress. Um, so how does the thing being the thing manifest itself if it's really happening? And there is a very famous case about this. Don't pay too close attention to the pictures, or we're going to get banned. Um,
oof, ouch.
this is on the ACLU's website. They still brag about this, but they don't do this anymore. They're all about the narrative and pushing their own political agenda when they used to be about we don't care who you are, including some of the literal worst people in America. Um, because this goes really deep. I mean, besides the fact that their lawyer was Jewish, um, I didn't initially know about this, but Skokie, Illinois was chosen by this group, um, uh, this National Socialist something or other of America group, because it had a very large immigrant population of Holocaust survivors. So it was magnitudes worse than what it is on the surface, which is, oh, these Nazis want to do a march and a rally, and as much as we hate them, they have the right to do it. Oh gosh, but it's even worse than that because they're such awful people. Um, but in 1977, the ACLU took this case all the way to the Supreme Court and won because as loathsome as these people are, the main thing is still the main thing. And the main thing is that in America, you have a right to peaceably assemble and express an opinion, no matter how vile the rest of us think it is. Okay. And now, and where this ties into the Trump thing, and you cannot use the levers of law enforcement and power to suppress those you disagree with. The main thing is no longer the main thing. So, how much have you been paying attention to this New York fraud case against Trump?
Uh,
So,
I hear it in passing, but it hasn't been like a project of mine.
mhm.
Yeah.
So the New York Attorney General is 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 suing the Trump organization and Trump and his three children personally for fraud. Um, which the basic nuts and bolts of the case is that um they overvalued their properties and thereby defrauded investors. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But what it really is an attempt to literally confiscate the property of someone they don't like.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the more recent uh, uh, updates in the case was that the judge was trying to bar, or the attorney general was trying to get a judge to bar Trump from moving assets out of New York. Why? Because New York wants to confiscate those assets. That's what this really is. Um, this is the Guardian, um, which isn't exactly right leaning. Uh, where was it? Okay, here we go. So on top of they don't want Trump moving stuff around, they want to make it nigh impossible for him to even do business. Um, he also ordered the cancellation of New York business certificates of all companies related to Trump and his two sons. Hold on. The main thing used to be the main thing. And it used to be that it didn't matter who you were and what we thought of you. You still got your day in court and you were still innocent until proven guilty. How are you going to cancel business certificates when you have not proven your case yet? This is still just an allegation on the part of a prosecutor, but you're
Yeah,
still basically ending this person's business before you have had a trial.
yeah, and the judge determined the value, not an
Mm-hmm.
actual valuation of the property. And I'm looking for something they did on pool here, but I'm
And
looking for
and
it
and
here.
the so in that previous article, one of the Letitia James, the prosecutor, the AG, said this was about making sure that Trump couldn't evade paying a fine. Okay, well, a fine for us is $100 speeding ticket. No, no, his allies and his companies will have to pay the 250 million in monetary damages. That is a that is intended to bankrupt you. Okay, I don't care that he goes around calling himself a billionaire. That's in assets. Nobody has that much cash just lying around, well, except for Apple and Amazon. You have to sell off assets in order to pay a fine like that, which is what they want. um well, it's okay. So however, the main thing is not the main thing from the left for sure, but the the right should not get off uh, from blame here, because for the right for a long time the main thing has not been the main thing either, because this isn't new.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that the more libertarian people on the right, this is why I have Reason Magazine here, have been ranting about for a while, is uh, something called civil asset forfeiture. Now, this came about from the idea that, well, you shouldn't be able to profit from illegal activities. So the government can confiscate this property if it can show that you got this property, this money, these assets from illegal activity.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that eventually morphed into they can seize property if they suspect illegal activity is going on, and then the burden of proof is on you to get that property back. They don't have to ever file charges. They just keep your property. And this is from June of this year, 2023. This was going on. This was being talked about while Trump was president. But there was a rift between the more libertarian right and the law and order right, who didn't want to interfere with, because there were sheriff's associations saying, no, no, we need this in order to fight crime. No, you need this to pad your budget. And so we didn't push through. The main thing should be the main thing. Well, we want law and order. Okay, yes, but we don't want it at the expense of basic Fourth Amendment due process, capital R rights. Just because you want law and order doesn't mean you get to do whatever the hell you want. Just because you don't like Trump doesn't mean you get to do whatever the hell you want and destroy his business before you've even had a trial.
Well, this is where you're bringing forward Trump and why we should all care. We should have all cared when it was Alex Jones.
Yeah.
Alex Jones was the test case.
Wait,
Let's take this let's take this person most people hate, and let's put him through the ringer with things that are not legal, and nobody will come to his defense, and let's see if that happens. And they did it, and it worked, and they said okay.
uh-huh.
And it's just a couple months later they said, well, now let's do the exact same thing. because a
Well,
lot of people hate this guy.
as 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 this Reason magazine piece, points out, we should have cared when it was happening to nobodies.
Hmm.
Uh, Detroit was infamous for this because they were going around seizing people's cars on the flimsiest of pretenses and then not giving them back because they just kept basically making up reasons for, well, you didn't do this or that thing, so we're not going to release your property back to you. No, 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 government, you didn't do anything that even remotely smells of due process. And they were basically, because Detroit is going bankrupt because people are fleeing it because it's a hellhole, they were just seizing people's cars to auction off so that they could pad their budgets. And the Supreme Court finally said, no, you can't do that. But it was a relatively narrow decision that um, that still didn't smack this down because uh, what it was, what the case was, and again, this is Alabama. This is a deep red state. This shouldn't be happening there, you would think, because no, you're supposed to know better, but they don't because the thing isn't the thing. We're more concerned about scoring political points and advancing the things we want rather than saying, this may hurt my side, but this is the right thing to do. So the court was deciding that people are entitled to a probable cause hearing after the seizure, and if so, how speedily it must be done. No, there shouldn't be a seizure in the first place. There's no criminal case here.
Hmm.
There's no due process. You're still putting the burden of proof on the aggrieved, on the person who had their property stolen by the government in the first place. This shouldn't be a thing, but it is because for too long the main thing hasn't been the main thing, and it's relatively innocuous when we're talking about the NFL here and how this thing I used to be passionate about is now boring, and I'm going, well, I guess I'll just have to clean the kitchen because I really don't care about this game or what's going on here. Well, all right.
Well, that's
When
just
people are
also
having their
from your
property
many years of
seized,
being a
yeah,
Cowboys fan, and
well, there's
since you
that.
haven't had anything to celebrate since 1995, it's
No, 96 I think was the last one,
96,
wasn't it?
somewhere around
Yeah,
there.
yeah, same difference.
It's been longer since the Cowboys have won a Super Bowl since than the Texans.
Yep.
Yep. Although there is the meme out now that says after the Rangers won, it says every team in Texas has won a championship
Oh,
except one.
geez. The uh the uh the guys on the radio were being snarky afterwards because they brought up this interesting stat that um it was exactly the Rangers won exactly 12 years after the Mavs won a championship, which was exactly 12 years after the Stars won a championship. So the Cowboys are on track to win in 2035.
No, Houston's next. Houston's next. We've
No,
we've
they
got.
were talking specifically about Dallas
Oh, okay,
teams.
yeah.
So it was the Stars, and 12 years later the Dallas Mavericks won. Then 12 years later the Texas Rangers finally won. So the Dallas Cowboys will finally win another Super Bowl in 2035.
Well, what I hate to break to Cesario and D'Amico Ryans is you better do it in the next 3 years because our quarterback's playing well, and that's going to be a contract issue. And here we go, as usual. So get it done. It's the Aaron Rodgers effect. Aaron Rodgers won a Super Bowl when he was on his rookie contract, his first year starting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then
And
he
then
started
never
getting that
again.
big money. The only one that's bucked that trend in recent history has been Mahomes. He
Mm-hmm.
got his big contract and still won a couple. But he's actually a competitor. Some of these guys are just in it for the money. And Rodgers finally learned his lesson after being 40 years old and going to another team, and he reduced his contract to get a team around him, and then he popped his Achilles. So you learn your lesson when you're too old sometimes. But no, the thing is not the thing, right? So that actually segues right into my
Mm-hmm.
school bitching and moaning because it's no longer a place of learning. It's a place of getting students in to take their money. And
It's a place of employment for people with advanced degrees, both as professors, but more and more as admin, which
mhm.
requires advanced degrees for you to be a school administrator.
So let me describe the good class first. I think I semi bitched about this. Is I love developmental psych. It's I think this might be the direction I go if I was to semi specialize because I just seem to have a knack for it. Plus, it I think it has the most impact of all of it, uh, and it's the most interesting. We meet once every 5 weeks to do a test. That's the handwritten essay test because they don't want AI being being used to write your tests. But the rest of the time, we're reading a chapter and an article related to the chapter and meeting as a small group, 5 of us. If I wanted to read a textbook and chat with some friends, I'm doing it right now.
Mhm.
I have learned absolutely nothing from the teacher in this class, other than I'm kind of on the right track because I keep getting A's on the tests. That's basically the feedback I've gotten is that I'm on the right track. Well, you know what? I could read a freaking book and then talk about it. Uh, that's the good class. Stats class, the one I've been bitching about a lot. I get on that we have it's all online. We have our PowerPoints and a lecture, which is a lecture of the teacher everybody hates that just reads the PowerPoint. And I'm like, I could read the PowerPoint faster than you're talking about the PowerPoint, but I keep listening to see if I get something more from what you're talking about. And then she asks very vague questions, expecting very specific answers. And it was this last month, which we've been going since August. So 3 months, and we did our first calculation in stats class. Our first calculation was in the end of October, 3 months in. So I actually had to go to YouTube to learn how to do the calculation that she wanted me to do. And so I'm going through this and now go to admin. Well, I have student loans already out. I'm not taking any student loans to go. I'm paying everything out of pocket. But in order to do that, I need that pause on the student loans that I already owe on so I can pay for my school. And so I filled out the thing on the federal student loan website that says you're still in school, you need a forbearance and everything. And their answer is, we will contact your school to verify this. I have done that form 4 times, and UHCL has not responded that I'm a student there. So I keep getting bills for, and I'm like, who the fuck am I paying in this administrative office that can't hit yes
Yep.
on a questionnaire?
Yep.
uh, this is my frustration. So the moral of the story, to make a long story short, is I paid $6,000 over the last 3 months to read a book and talk about it, and not learn anything from another teacher, but still get
Mhm.
graded on assignments. That's pretty much what I'm paying for. The problem is it's a captured system. To get licensed in the profession I want to go into, you need the piece of paper, and they know that.
Mhm.
So they can do whatever they want because you need that piece of paper to get the license to actually do this as a profession.
What what generation are your professors in? How old are they? Are they like close
My
to our
develop
age or?
my developmental is older, and I actually sense frustration on her part too from the way everything is. So I actually like her as a professor, and I think it would actually be a net positive if we were able to do more stuff.
Mm.
Because when we get together for the test, she does do a little bit of lecture, and I do like her style. She's a little bit more old school, I think, in her way of thinking. Uh, but I think she's a victim of the system as well. My stats professor, she's probably younger than I am. I think she's a similar age, if not probably mid 30s, I would guess, and completely woke. Still wears a mask.
Oh, geez.
Still wears a mask and Zoom calls. Uh,
I almost ended it all and swerved into oncoming traffic the other day because I saw a guy driving towards me with a mask on in a car by himself with the window open. What the hell is going on?
So I'm supposed to learn research and statistics from a person who obviously can't read research and statistics because she's still wearing a
Well,
mask.
that's why I asked, because we're this Saki's all the way back to where we started, which is how dumb we are all getting. That, and it is, you know, the thing stopped being the thing a long time ago in academia. And so now those people taught the next people who taught these people. So you're a copy of a copy of a copy of something that was already bad to begin with. So you're not even at She Touched My Peppy, Steve. I mean, you're worse. You're
Mm-hmm.
you're 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 past that.
Oh, I love that movie.
Multiplicity,
Speaking,
for anyone who didn't
yeah,
get that, go watch it.
speaking of good movies,
Yeah.
I think we're gonna have to amputate. it's it's that's a good one. Uh, no, this is where I'm at because I was in a funky place the other night when I was texting all that because you brought up how do you not let something spiral you out when something happens
Mm-hmm.
earlier. Well, this teacher that I'm having trouble respecting her knowledge, uh, I had a late assignment. It's my fault. I missed it. It was on a 2 Mondays ago. Every assignments are due on Mondays. 2 Mondays ago, we had a module activity, which is the lectures with a little assignment at the end. We had the homework, which is like 15 essays, and a quiz, which you do a timed one after you do both of those, all due on that day. But apparently, the next chapter module activity was also due. But when I got done with the quiz, my mind was like, okay, I'm done. Good. All right. Time for bed because I'm already up too late, anyways. And 3 days later, when I got back onto that class to start working on stuff, it said missing assignment, and it was that next one that I didn't do. So I was like, oh, son of a bitch. So okay. So I did it, and then I turned it in with a note that said, I know this is late. Uh, I'm just trying to salvage any points I can get. It's my fault. And her response was very, I think it was canned. I think she has like a pre-written
Mm.
response for late assignments. And it was very condescending. It was like, well, you should read these things and da da da. You're supposed to be on here every day and you should check everything. And I was just like, bitch, who the fuck puts an assignment for the next chapter on the same day of the test? First of all. Second of all, I already admitted that I fucked up. And it was, and then third, I started thinking of like, I'm not even learning anything from your class. I'm having to go outside of your class to learn the things to pass your class.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not doing your job either. And I just got on that whole like mental roller coaster, and it went down many rabbit holes because Jin, but it was that was my mood. That's what started it all, was that. And then I started thinking about that other class. I'm like, even the class I like, I'm just reading the textbook. I bought the textbook for $50 on Amazon used. That class is costing me $2,000. I could just read the textbook and have the same knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I've been at mentally, because I'm like, well, am I going for the knowledge, or am I going for the degree? I need the degree for the license, but can I monetize this in some other way? And now you start thinking of people like Peterson and all of these people that are just like, the internet has changed everything. And am I facilitating the process by staying? Or would I be doing better to leave, still get the knowledge, and then perpetuate it in some way without that
Mm-hmm.
stupid piece of paper? And I'm going to stick around a little longer because I'm still in that mental space to make that decision. But
Mm-hmm.
it's frustrating because it's a lot of money. That's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
It's every cent I have spare to go back to do this thing. And
Well, I mean, the thing isn't the thing, and you're not the actual customer. You, the student, who are supposed to be there to learn, except you're not. As you said, you're there to
well,
pay the
I'm there to learn,
salaries.
but
Well, you're there to learn,
yeah,
but on from their perspective,
yeah.
yeah, you're not. You're there to make sure that the professors and all the admin, especially, have salaries. Okay, that this is akin to my recent frustrations with my obnoxious health insurance, who I used to get nerve blocks in the occipital, which For anyone who has chronic headaches, you can feel them building back here. That's the knobby bit that sticks out at the back of your skull, and the doctor can go in there, put nerve blocks in there to block or lessen that pain that creates those headaches. We've done them before. They've worked, and insurance approved them. But now all of a sudden they've decided it's not medically necessary and experimental. Well, except that my doctor's nurse got on the phone with someone at the insurance company, went round and around, and finally the person at the insurance company said, well, it's not covered by his plan anymore. Okay, why? When? And I talked to my brother who's in insurance. He said, yeah, you're just screwed because all of that fine print that nobody reads, and you probably wouldn't understand if you did read it because it's all in legalese. That just says they have to inform you, but they get to decide how they inform you. So they could put a notice up in some corner of their web page, and they have fulfilled their legal duties. Well, why? Because the thing isn't the thing. And in business, the thing is supposed to be the customer. But we have created these systems where the customer isn't actually the customer. So I'm not the customer that the insurance company is catering to. It goes through my wife's work. So they don't care what I think. They don't care how mad I get. And then the other arm of that is they're selling to the company, not to me, and they're responsive to the government who creates this Byzantine amount of regulation, that they're responsive to that, not to even the actual customer, let alone the person who's supposed to be the customer. Well, same thing for you is higher academia is captured by not just government regulation, but then government money, because all of these student loans are government backed loans. So they're responsive to them. They don't give a damn what you think.
Which is why I'm still confused by the failure of the person in the financial aid department to answer the thing, because then they would get more money. But it's because people just don't. There's probably someone in there posting memes about hating their job. It's probably what it is while she's supposed to be working. It's he or she, sorry, they are supposed to be working. Zer, yeah, whatever. But it's like Twitter or social media in general. There's a solution to this whole censorship thing. The terms of service, we have to block The solution isn't, what is it, section 230 or whatever. The solution isn't that. The solution is, what were the terms of service when that person signed up? Honor that. There you go. All problems fixed.
Yes, this is going back to insurance, an example. One of the big things that makes health insurance so damn annoying is because they will randomly decide later, yeah, we're not actually going to cover what we pre-authorized, and then you'll get a bill. Well, that's like the restaurant you go to sending you a bill a week later saying, "Now we've changed our prices, and so now you owe us $20 more." No, I went there. I agreed to the exchange of, goods for money. I ate your food. I paid my bill. We're done now. The transaction is completed. But it's not.
Lawyer McBeardy explained this to me, because for those that actually saw the one original episode of this channel, it looks similar to Heath, but he is a different person.
And much better beard. I'm so jealous.
He does have an amazing beard. But that's why we call him Lawyer McBeardy. But that has been removed because he threatened at his job for being on YouTube. But he is in insurance law. He is well, I want to get him back on, and I had a picture for him, and it was like the shadowed out face, and it said laughs in hidden is the meme. It says laughs in hidden. But it's actually around Medicare. Medicare is the problem, because they send that bill out knowing you'll fight it and never pay it, but that bill is what they can charge Medicare. And if they don't send that out, then they have a precedent of their prices. And so it's the $500 toilet seats, right, for the government. It's the $300 ink pen for the government. They do these things knowing you'll never pay it, but they know the government will pay it when they bill it out. Yes. And it's the shaking hands with the government. There's a word for it. What is that word? when corporations and government, are in bed together.
Oh, I don't know. It's totally
Starts with
escapes
an
me.
F. Starts with
I'm
an
I'm
F.
I'm sure there aren't historical precedents for it or anything.
No, no, no. Yeah, it's literally Hitler, I think. It's
Well, it's the same with the terms of service. Is they get to, I mean, to your point, we've entered into, if I click agree, then we have entered into a contract.
mhm.
But you get to change the contract on your side at your whim, because it's allowed. Who enforces contract law? The government. The
It's
government allows
I'm going to
this.
get us canceled. It's because we're run by women. It's like marriage. We're having crazy happy sex for the first 2 years. I agree to get married, and all of a sudden you cut it off. It's that's. Did I go too far?
Uh-oh.
Ruh-roh.
No, I just don't know what you're talking about from personal experience.
Yeah,
Hey.
yeah. Giggity. 99% of men know what I'm talking about who have been entered into a contractual relationship with a female that was once hot and heavy until she had her first couple kids, and then she said, "Okay, I'm done."
Yup.
There's a book about it right there.
uh,
Oh, I'd love to get us canceled.
well, that's been an hour and a half ish. Did we have anything else we were going to rant about? I know those were the big things.
I actually have to the thing, the really dark topic. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is okay. So we talk about not editing our stuff very much. There is one thing I clipped out of an episode. I was like 3 or 4, episode 3 or 4 or something. I did clip a part out because I didn't want it to be traced back to who it actually
Mm,
was or anything. But I've had a friend that took their own life at some point, right? uh Friend used loosely because we were fighting a lot at the time over very obvious things that people would understand why I was
yeah.
fighting with this person for. And the manifesto from the Tennessee shooter
Yes.
just came out, right? And the hatred that's in there and all the revelations we're getting, and we don't even have the full thing yet. Crowder released it, right?
Yeah.
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 So
Yeah. He
Crowder
got a
had a
hold of
source.
it from
He got
someone. Yeah.
he got a source that he won't reveal, and he got a hold of it, and it's been confirmed that it's the real thing. Uh, I was just thinking back on that because first of all, someone took their own life, and that's just horrible to begin with. And did I contribute to that? So when I reflect on negative things around me, so the school thing is other people affecting my life, right? It's a teacher that doesn't really do their job, but there's nothing I can do about it. There's a system that is designed not for the person who should be benefiting from it, and this is the part where all the everybody, the motivational speakers, you're in control of everything if you just believe. No, no, we're subject to
Mm-hmm.
the decisions of everybody around us. It's very selfish to think you are in control of everything, right?
Yeah.
So that puts me down a mental kind of exercise, which it's very stressful and it's hard on me, but I think it's a positive thing because it would make me a better person. Of, well, how have I affected another person's life, and what are my selfish decisions that might have affected another person's life? And I started reflecting on this one person because I remember conversations we had shortly before the incident happened, and I was like, yeah, I was kind of a dick. I was a dick. And then you add the shooter into it. I was like, what if he didn't decide to just do it to himself? What if he had taken out his family
Mm-hmm.
first? Or what if he had gone into a school and done that, or a Walmart, or theater, or pick your poison, right?
Yeah.
What if it had been more than that? What would be my role in that? And those kind of things weigh a little bit on me for good or bad. And
It's kind of stuff that keeps you from sleeping at night because your brain just keeps going down and down and down rabbit
it did.
holes.
It
Yeah.
kept me from sleep. I fell asleep easy, but then I woke up at like 2 in the morning, and those thoughts kept really just rolling over. And I think that helps people be a better person to have those thoughts, but at the same time, it's really tough, really tough. And I don't know what the answer is to that. So that's why I wanted to bring it up, because maybe you had some insights of, be the motivational speaker of there's nothing you
Yeah.
could have done. They were fucked up in the beginning, or
Well, I don't know because you're the one that usually has to talk me off this ledge. Because most of my time is spent in self-regret and self-loathing. What I told you, and I think it does hold true in this particular instance, is at that point in your life, I don't think there's any way you could have known, you could have seen what was coming. Um, so the only real failure would be to not learn from it. And even if something as drastic and terrible as a suicide doesn't come along down the road, there will be, potential traumas that you might be able to avert if you have this in your mind as a lesson. Um, and uh, so that's the only motivational speaker thing I can think of for the more general idea and what I've been trying to do with myself. I don't remember who said this, but I'm pretty sure it was with Williamson talking to Carr of find something you do that's easy to you that's difficult for other people,
Yeah, that was Carr. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and make that your profession. Make that your career. That's how you find a career, is to find something that's
That's
easy
what I'm
for
trying to
you.
do. It
Exactly.
just costs a lot of money.
Ex- exactly. So, all right, I can't change the paths I didn't take. So what can I do now? Well, I can find something that is easy for me to do, that's difficult for other people to do. Of course, the challenge then is actually doing it.
Hmm.
Is actually pushing yourself to do it. Or in this case, when you're talking about life lessons, is remembering, absorbing those lessons without them constantly being in the front of your mind, which is where the dark rabbit holes come from.
Yeah, I want to push a little bit back on that, even though the general concept is correct. It goes along with the do what you love and you won't work a day in your life kind of mentality. I don't agree with that because I do what I love, and it makes you work harder. Because yes, the general concept of it might be something I'm better at. If I'm really good at math, like I would be a better engineer, right? But the hardest things in life is not hitting a baseball. The hardest thing in life is being good at what you do, because you have to work at being good even if you have a knack for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the well, what's the hardest sport? Being the best at your sport. That's the hardest sport. Uh, and it's the more you love it, actually, the more hard on yourself you are about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's it's the Williamson was talking about this after that episode. Uh, he was lamenting, talking about the regrets in life talks that he would have. The book I hate, the nurse that wrote about people that talk about, oh, I wish I would have been more genuinely myself or everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's always advice coming from the people who are already there and they went through the process to get there. But what that negates is the fact that you have to go through that process to get there.
Yeah.
And if you just take that mentality from the beginning, you never go through the process.
I maybe a strange example, but I always hated sitcom episodes where someone thinks they won the lottery, but then it turns out they didn't, or they lost the ticket or whatever. And the moral of the story is supposed to be, but you're better off and you're happier this way. What the hell are you talking about? You make $10 million an episode for a 24-minute episode of sitcom. Just shut up.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Now there is a lot of evidence that lottery winners are tend to not. It's the fact that they didn't work for it
Exactly.
is
Well,
the problem.
and so that actually keeps us on topic, because as I got to thinking about what Williamson and Carr were talking about there, where my mind ended up is that, well, the easy for you doesn't necessarily mean a talent or an ability.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The sports example is a good one, because you do have to have physical, you have to have whatever the physical aptitude and requirements are for that thing. But what really makes it easy for the people who make it look easy is that you have the mental ability to put in the work, and as the so uh SF guys, I think the SEAL specifically have this. I think Jocko talks about it. Embrace the suck. If
Yeah, don't get me started on Goggins
yeah.
because I think he has lost sight of the fact that he can't embrace the suck of not hurting himself. There's different kind of mental capacity.
Yes.
He's gotten addicted to beating himself up. And this,
Yes.
you see this in exercise all the time. I deal with this all the time. People get addicted to hurting themselves because they think they deserve it.
And where the people who make it through, and I think I've mentioned this before, but the book Lone Survivor, he spends a lot of time. He really spends more time in how he got to SEAL training and how he got through SEAL training than the actual events in Afghanistan, and and so much of it is mental. And I think that's part of the easy is, can you get yourself to do this thing and keep doing it? So I've used the dirty jobs example before. As Micro said, nobody wakes up with a burning passion to pick up dog poop. Okay.
Mhm.
But you do it because you can and it earns you a living. And as he said, they didn't really go into it because that wasn't the point of the show. But most of the people he talked to, worked with, showed on the show, they were small business owners. They were wealthy people because they had found this niche that they could do and do well. And I think a bigger part of that that they didn't really go into with Williamson Carr is the mental part that I hope this is making sense. That um uh I hated working fast food, but some people can do it. And it's not that the skill set is difficult, it's the putting up with the grind, the smell, the annoyingness, the whatever. But can you make yourself do that and keep doing it?
Yeah, and I think so. We're kind of like narrowing in on a general point or a more specific point to what we started with is when we look at life course theory and just different points that you are in your life. Yeah, you that whole regret of not being a genuine person is a real thing, but also embracing the grind is a real thing to get you to that point. It's when do you let go?
Hmm.
Okay, so I'm Chris Williamson. I have 3 million followers and I've done 700 episodes. And okay, maybe now I can start my reflection phase. Maybe this is the right time. I don't know. I don't know where he's at. He's still grinding. He's pumping out a lot of content.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but is this the time where you start being genuine to yourself? Well, I couldn't do it unless I did that first part. But when do I let go? Goggins is this is what got me to make this mental flip here is he doesn't know when to let go. He embraced the suck to get through SEAL training. He embraced the suck to be a motivational physical specimen. He also just posted a reel not that long ago where he grabs his leg and the edema is so bad. Now it's from a surgery, he says, but the surgery was there because he basically runs what 100 something miles a week or every even he's our age, I think, or a
Yeah.
little bit older.
I know you keep saying Goggins, and I keep thinking Walter Goggins, and then I get confused. That the
No,
actor from
no, David Goggins.
yeah,
But his big thing is the embrace the suck. He's the
yeah,
embrace the
yeah.
suck guy. And I'm like, you got edema in your leg.
Hmm.
And the whole point of the video was, look at this that's happening to me, but
Yeah,
I'm gonna lift weights with my upper body to stay moving. And I'm like, how about take a
dude,
day
yeah.
off, dude?
Yeah, the point of Embrace the Suck what
Yeah,
is or was
it's
supposed to be to get you through this incredibly difficult phase because there's a worthwhile goal on the other side, not to perpetually be in Hell Week. That's why
yeah,
Hell Week is a week, because they don't want to completely destroy you. They just want to weed out the people that aren't mentally there.
yeah. And the dopamine system is made for the motivation to reach the goal. And everybody talks about, oh, it's about the process, not the end. Well, if you never have an end, then it's a
Mm-hmm.
pointless process.
Yes. No, it should be a process of processes.
Exactly, which is gets us back to monogamy. Uh, the best strategy might be might be serial monogamy
Uh,
because that's how we're hardwired.
it's an Odd
No,
segue, but okay.
I just wanted to mess with you there, but that's a
Well,
whole episode in itself because there's actually a lot of data behind that. But
well, I wanted to mess with you too. I went back and was rereading Berlinski when I thought we were going to argue about life, and then it turned out we can't even argue about the thing I wanted to argue about because the base level is just such crap. We got to get past that first. Jeez, I wanted to yell at you. Yeah,
no, no,
heathen.
we got to an important topic though. It's you know it's the constant improvement, but at the same time, it's the balance between that and always wanting to improve versus, well, when can I move on from
Mhm.
that one thing? And okay, I got down to 7% body fat. Well, do I keep going till I'm 2% body fat? That's not healthy, right? Do I let myself go back up to 10? That might be healthier. I don't know. Let's play around with it. Let's do that. The do I dwell on this thing that happened because it keeps coming back up in my psyche? Okay, so we got to figure that one out, because why does it keep coming up? Why does it keep
Yeah.
bubbling to the surface? Am I just dwelling, or is there a lesson to be learned there? And I think there's a lesson to be learned there because it was such a traumatic thing. It was traumatic enough for somebody to take their own life, right?
Mhm.
It was there's a lesson to be learned there. How could I have been a better person there? uh it might not have been motivation. It might have been like a surgical approach. I could have been more precise in how I handled it versus what actually I felt at the time, right? So it's I think sometimes we can learn our lessons, but we have to know when to move on. And that's a spot I'm struggling with. School is a spot where I'm struggling right now because there are lessons there. There's a lesson that I could do this same process cheaper. I just got to figure out a way, or I could do it the traditional way and benefit a lot of people. So both directions, I could probably benefit people. And I don't know. That's
Well, I mean, we don't always have to have an answer because sometimes there isn't an answer. It's a process of processes. I'm gonna have to remember that because I like that.
well, yeah, and
Um,
sometimes it's there's no right decision. There's just decisions.
it, yeah, that was something that popped into my head uh when I was going through the different articles and things we were talking about earlier, and I didn't want to derail myself, but it's something we talk about a lot, which is our motto from the great Thomas Sowell: there are no solutions, only trade-offs. That is, so going back to kind of where I started with Whitlock, th- that's how the main thing stopped being the main thing, using the NFL as an example, because too many people within and around it decided we can have it all. No, you can't. No one can have it all. That's just not how life works. There are going to be trade offs. Well,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
this
We'll
is the
stick
thing
with
you want to
yeah.
do. What's the trade off going to be?
Let's look at the actual game of football. Full contact pads on football. You cannot have football without risk.
Mm-hmm.
And they keep trying to make the game as risk-free as possible. You can't have a contact sport without risk.
Yeah.
And we have to decide as a collective unit, fans, players, owners, all of us together, what is that acceptable risk? And personally, I say leave it the way it is, and the people who think it's acceptable will play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the people who don't think it's acceptable to even passively participate, the audience, they won't join. You know, I don't
Yeah, and
like.
if that level reaches a profit point, then they will make it safer. If that level stays profitable, then they'll keep it the way it is, and the people that are willing to take that risk will go make the profit.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right. The market,
it's almost like
i.e.,
capitalism,
people, will
almost,
sort
almost.
itself out.
Yeah,
Because there will be people who will want to participate, people who won't, and that's that. And to vilify either side is, well, it's absurd.
oh,
It
what do we
just
got coming up?
it's just really Absurd.
These cuts are blood money. People will die. Let's be very clear.
Dun dun.
Senate Republicans are paying for tax cuts for the wealthy with American lives.
People need kidneys. It's sad but decreed, yet the senator's hoarding one more than she needs. I offer this bill and I hope you'll vote aye, unless of course you just want people to die. Traffic deaths have many crying with fear. Over 30,000 people are dying each year. This modest change I propose must be applied, unless of course you just want people to die.
You got to go watch this whole thing, people.
Oh
It's
gosh.
hilarious. And I've made this point before of um traffic deaths are at or near the top every year in America and have been for like 40 years. We've actually raised speed limits. Okay. Because at least on some level there, people understand, okay, yes, this is a risk. We can mitigate the risk with, seat belts and crumple zones and airbags and, just being a not moron while you're driving. But we can't eliminate the risk unless we completely eliminate cars, and the trade-off isn't worth it.
Like prohibition. People die from drinking too much all the time.
That's the next verse, actually. Is
Yeah.
Well, we should ban alcohol because it's bad.
But what happened when we did that?
Yeah.
The market chose.
Worse. Yes.
The market chose, and we got the mob.
And then we got the FBI, and we see how well that's going these days.
Yeah, which might have been the point the whole time. We don't know, but there's a tinfoil hat theory right there. The prohibition was started to create the FBI. You heard it first here, guys.
Well, the way things are going, this will be proven true in a couple of months.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
All right. Well, I got nothing else, and I think that's a good note to end on. Of you have to agree with us unless you want people to die.
Oh.
Speaking of people dying, we will see y'all Friday for some more Wheel of Time action. I don't even remember where we are, but we're making good time because
we
just
like
don't care.
3/4 of the way through the book.
Yeah.
Well, but it's lumped. There's a lot of big chunks. There was probably like this much Perrin and then this much file. We just finished file section.
I actually, that's a good point. That the way he structured this book may be the best part about it, because there's not a lot of jumping around.
Yeah, I think we're on Rand again.
No, I think it's Egwene.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Oh,
yeah. We have a chunk. We have an Egwene chunk, and then we either go to Rand or we finally get back to Matt for a little bit before
we end with Matt. No, we already talked about that.
Oh yeah.
Because it was a long way to Matt.
Yeah.
But we'll. I think maybe 3 episodes. We'll get through this book. 3 more episodes.
Well, that's actually an interesting segue into next episode, because that's kind of a major part of Egwene's storyline. Is she has to get these people moving to do what needs to be done, because they just want to sit around doing nothing. And she's kind of the one that understands there are no solutions here. There are only trade-offs. We can sit and do nothing, but that has its own downsides. Yes, we won't start a war. People won't die, at least directly, but people will die from other reasons, and there will be negative consequences. So which do you want?
Well, obviously she chose death in the end, but
I still got chosen pain.
I still got that meme waiting for that episode in Memory of Light. Matt going, "I lost an eye," or no, everybody looking at Perrin and they say, "How did you come out of this unscathed?" And Matt says, "I lost an eye," and Rand says, "I lost my body," and Egwene goes, "Y'all lived?"
Oh. Lost his body after suffering massive wounds, and then losing a hand, and then he's a mess.
Oh, all right. Well, we'll see you next time. I don't think we gave any advice that would qualify as medical, other than learn to let go at some point, but also embrace the suck when it's appropriate.
Mm-hmm. And if you're having trouble figuring out when is that time, then
that's what friends are for.
That's what friends are for. And if it has to go further than that, that's what professional help is for. Just, of course, that's an entirely different episode on its own. Is okay, but how do you find competent professional help these days?
And I guess that was part of my rant. Is I'm trying to learn to be professional help, but the people that are in that position aren't very good in some instances, or their hands are tied. Like I said about the teacher I actually like, is her hands might be tied to keep her from being good at her job. So it's definitely difficult because and you add medicine into that. I know I benefit from the industry, but I'm not a big fan of psychiatry because throw the meds at it. Throw the meds at it, just like every other profession right now. And yeah.
All right. Well, great. We've managed to end it on a downer, so we're
Well,
on brand.
on brand.
All right.
All right, later, guys.